really excited to introduce DeVaris to you guys. DeVaris Brown, you probably know him as the sexiest voice in Ember if you've listened to the Ember hot seat. Yeah. So, yeah, you should do a screencast. You should do the Ember CLI screencast. Yeah, okay. We just committed on video. We've got a commitment from DeVaris to do that. Awesome. So as I do with most speakers, we were out last night at the party, and I asked him, so are you feeling nervous about your talk tomorrow? And most speakers would say, yeah, I got to work on some slides. I'm feeling, public speaking. It makes me nervous, but I'm excited. DeVaris says, are you kidding me? I opened for Bill Clinton in front of 20,000 people in Chicago, okay? I think EmberConf is nothing. So, yeah. So we got a very experienced speaker here. DeVaris, take it away.
All right. So thank you all for allowing me to speak about my decidedly non-technical time with Ember. I really do appreciate it. I wanted to talk about a little experiment that I had teaching Ember to some underprivileged kids. So I hate being the person between everyone and lunch, so I'll try to keep this brief, but hopefully you glean some good information from it. So this is me. Everyone knows that, right? And if you like a sticker, I have those. It's definitely not a joke. Yeah, you can look at Tom. Tom doesn't have it anymore. And I work at Zendesk, and my job is I'm over the platform. They call me the API guy, so if you're so interested. Yes, we are hiring. Where's Leah in the back? So you can go and talk to her. And Tom also said that I am the voice of the Ember hot seat. So everyone here has been asking me when the next hot seat is. It's when you sign up and come on the show. So please do not be afraid. Do not be shy. I would love to have you come on. So one of the cool things about working at Zendesk is that the area that we're in San Francisco is called mid-market and the Tenderloin. And part of the agreement that we have is that we actually have to be active participants in the community to receive some sort of benefits. But most companies just write a check and hope everything goes swimmingly. But that's not good enough for Zendesk. What we do is that we actually take our expertise and our abilities out into the community and try to make it better. So for example, some engineers built an application so that people that are less fortunate can find out what resources are available to them at various points in time. So we built this for the Tenderloin Tech Lab, and we got a whole bunch of exposure from it. Engineers spoke at South by Southwest, a whole bunch of articles and things like that. But that's just one of the examples that, as a company, we really take to heart that we want to make the area and the people around us much better, right? It's very Zen, if you will. So one day I was actually reading an article, and it was talking about unemployment in the Bay Area, right? And if anybody, you guys are from the Bay Area, you know there's kind of a little bit of angst and tension going on between the have and have-nots. So unemployment in the Bay Area is about 6.1%. If you want to check my facts and figures, I actually cited some sources here. And something that really struck me is that the unemployment rate for teens between 16 and 19, eligible work age, is at 20.7%. It's pretty high, right? And then for my demographic, right, for African Americans in the Bay Area, for that same demographic, 38% of them are unemployed, right? And then for people that are of Southeast Asian descent, that number jumps up to 54%. So more than half of the people that are in our area, in the Tenderloin, that are in this age range don't have a job. So to combat all of these things, I know a few of you all probably have attended some of these boot camps, these hacker academies, but they've done really well. And we've actually hired a few of these students out of these cohorts to come and work at Zendesk, right? You learn about web development for, 8 to 12 weeks. You pay some X amount of money, or you pay part of your salary, and then, hopefully at the end of the program, you actually get a job. But unfortunately, that's not really accessible to a lot of people, right? They don't have $10,000 in 8 weeks to take off, right? So what I wanted to do is actually come up with something that would kind of mirror that, right? And we all know in the tech industry that there's no shortage of jobs, right? Like, how many of you guys here are hiring right now in some sort of capacity, right? Yeah, exactly, right? So in the Bay, last month, I checked this, there were 14,000 jobs added, right? Over 25% of those were just tech related, right? So the opportunity there is immense. So I figured, I would go, create a program that did some HTML5 stuff, some CSS, some JS, some jQuery, maybe if I had time, get into Rails, right? And the maybe there is because I really didn't see how I can make the leap between JavaScript and Rails. You guys probably see where I'm going with this, but. So I huddled up with some of the engineers and engineering managers and tried to figure out, how can I create a program that's actually engaging and doesn't put the kids to sleep, right? Because, kids are like with the cat with the laser pointer, right? It's just like the next thing, it will interest them and they're off to something else. So we came up with this curriculum that would teach them HTML basics, right? So what is HTML? What is the DOM? And I will tell you, trying to figure out how to explain what the DOM is to a kid, it is not the easiest thing in the world, right? But then we went through some basic site infrastructure, right? How to do the box model stuff, how to do markup, what actually is markup, some topography stuff, showed them how to make links and images and include audio and video. Going through this whole exercise made me feel like I was back on MySpace, right? Like, I'm a kid learning how to create, make my name go bold for the first time, right? The next thing that, just going through some basic, what is CSS? So we took all of the elements that we laid out on the page, just blank, and applied some of the CSS properties, so attributes. So we went through this, and I taught them what Bootstrap was, which, again, one of those things where you'd be surprised that kids actually they resonate with certain topics more than others, and for them, Bootstrap actually made sense. I have no clue how that is, but it worked. And then the big scary part, right, which is how do I teach them JavaScript? And trying to teach someone what object orientation is when they haven't really even had like basic algebra was a little bit tough. And it took me probably 3 or 4 weeks before they actually got it, right? But once they did, we were able to build a few. Well, I thought that we could build some of these projects, right? So the first thing I want them to do is build a portfolio site, right? Because we all know as developers, it's not just bits and bytes. We actually have to market ourselves and be social-ish, right? Right. Build a photo gallery with jQuery, build a to-do list with just plain JavaScript. And then if we had time, we would go ahead and build a blog using Ruby and Rails. So I got this curriculum together, and I figured hey, let me go get some students. So we worked with the Vietnamese Youth Development Center and Black Girls Code, which is a wonderful national organization. And I would love to tell you that everything was all roses and unicorns, and then that at the end of this, they all sold their startups for millions of dollars. But like any journey, there's a little bit of pain and suffering. I'm glad y'all got that one. I was a little worried. So not to sound too much like Dangerous Minds or any of the 90s, teacher goes into a horrible high school and, gives them the ability to do calculus in 2 weeks kind of thing. It was difficult just being a teacher. It was more than just code, right? There were days that I know for a fact that the students that were sitting across from me didn't eat, right? There were days where they couldn't come to class because they had matters at home to tend to, or at the school was on lockdown for hours because there was a shooting outside. These are the types of things that you have to deal with when you deal with the population, the demographic that I dealt with. And fortunately for me, I can relate to certain things based off of things I've gone to my background, but it's still tough, right? You wanna show the kids that, if you stick with me just a few more weeks, you'll have this light at the end of the tunnel. But it's really hard for them to see that when they're going through so many things that personally affect them. So enough of the tearjerker stuff. Other thing I realized, typing is hard. You don't use a lot of characters when you text, right? And you think that, it's just one of those things where I realize that now that we're going to be doing more and more iterations of this program, I'm going to have to give a typing test. And it's just one of those things where it's like you just have to practice, right? Some of y'all got this one. I told Tom I was worried about my obviously urban references, but you guys got this. All right, cool. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I just had to practice. And, there's something to rote learning, right? Where you just teach a kid, like, this is where the left angle bracket is, and this is where the right one is. And you just have to grok through it, right? And this is a wonderful website I found, and it really helps out. And as I alluded to before, explaining kind of the fundamentals of how the web works is extremely difficult, right? There's really no real world examples that you can relate kids to that they would understand. And at the time I was only 29, and I felt like, hey, I can relate to kids. Nah, man, I felt like listening to my mom talk about, like, hey, what are the new dances, or try to use slang for the first time, right? I realize I'm not as cool as I once thought I was, which is unfortunate. But the positive thing about this is that kids are naturally inquisitive, right? And they want to be able to find shortcuts. So one day while we're going through, how to build pages and things like that, one of the students asked me and said, hey, do we always have to copy and paste this stuff every time that we make a new page? I'm like, thank God you're paying attention, all right? I was waiting for somebody, you want somebody to give those leading questions so you could say, actually, you don't. And here's how you can do this. So I thought about it, and much credit to Eric Brin. He had a talk called Rise of the Clients that he gave at a San Francisco meetup. I took this from his talk, so don't think I'm like some graphic design savant. But essentially in his talk, he said that you go through the paces of web development, and eventually you get to the point where it's like, hey, I need a little bit to do something dynamic, right? And it's previously the choices were, all right, well, you can do something in PHP, but why, right? Why do we need to do that? And his proposition, his hypothesis at the time was, why don't we use EmberJS to do these things? So I figure Eric's a better Ember developer than I, so I will try this out and see how it resonates with the kids. And we did something like this with the static pages, right? We had a few routes, and once I showed them that they didn't have to copy and paste the entire code all the time for a new page, they just went crazy, right? Just developing pages and asking questions and really trying to figure out how they can get more involved with Ember so that they can do the things that they have inside of their heads, which is amazing. So one of the assignments that we had was to actually build a to-do list, right? And this, you see where I'm going with this, right? So we had an opportunity to build a to-do list with just JavaScript. And one of the students asked, he said, DeVaris, is there an opportunity, can we do this with Ember? I said, of course we can. And, this is a testament to the community and the utility that it provides. But, a lot of people complain about the docs and how they're not thorough enough. But I'm teaching 14 to 16-year-olds how to do JavaScript and they understand it and they get it from just what's on the website, all right? And I think, I think it's a testament to the framework that it allows people to get productive and they understand it, all right? So while we were doing this, I could actually see the gears turning in a lot of the people's heads. And then one of the young girls in particular, she was amazing. And I'll talk about kind of like, where are they now kind of thing. But she went home and went through all of the Ember tutorials and went through the introduction to Ember stuff. So she built a blog. Obviously, she had some fun with Bootstrap and a lot of the CSS things. She redid her to-do list inside of the website, and she redid her photo gallery, which was, for me, it was just quite amazing. And also what I forgot to do is like I taught them how to do Git, so she pushed everything up and then sent me a link to the repo and said, look at what I did. I said, thank you, Jesus. So we talk about this kind of like natural path and progression that I alluded to before, is that, it's really easy for us to teach children how to do HTML, CSS, right? It's just markup, right? They just put stuff on the page, they can move around and place it there. And then with JavaScript, even though the conversation becomes a little bit more difficult, once they grasp what the DOM is and how to do traversal and selection, they get it, right? It's one of those things where it's like, change all the H1s and the H3s, right? Like, and they're like, oh, I can do this with code now. And before, the leap between JavaScript and Rails, to me, was at least a little massive. But if you stick Ember in between that, they started to actually understand what the principles are that they would need down the line for Rails, right? So outlets and yields are the same thing. They knew that, hey, if I create a route for something, I'm going to need a view to associated with it, and all of those things, right? And it was one of those things where, again, like I said, I can't thank the Ember community enough for creating a framework that gave enough structure but allowed people to be creative with inside of it, or else I wouldn't have been able to do this. I would have been swimming around backbone hell for a while trying to teach kids how to do this, right? So kind of want to give like a where are they now, and this is like the best possible outcome. Before, I had 3 students that we took for 8 weeks, 4 hours a week, and taught them how to do these things. But Michelle, she was got accepted into San Jose State on a full academic ride. First kid to go to college. She was the first person in her family to go to college. She is now going to be studying computer science. She resurrected the computer club at her school, and I told her no matter what people say the computer club is cool, I was in the computer club. So if they have a problem, come see me. And she actually redeveloped their school's website. She's taking AP Computer Science. If I could tell you the numbers of women who actually take the AP Computer Science, they are more dismal than the numbers that I showed you earlier. And now she actually teaches web development at the Vietnamese Youth Development Center in San Francisco. So, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't have kids, but I feel like I'm a proud father right now. So, Rebecca and Kai. So Rebecca and Kai were the other 2 participants. They once they took the course, they took off running. So they started participating in all types of hackathons and hack weekends and things. And I'll tell you about the inquisitive nature of children. So they took place in the hackathon for Oakland Startup Weekend. And their task was to build an app that would affect the community or affect positive change in the community. So one of them, they obviously come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and you try to tackle the problem that's nearest to you. And the issue that one of the students had was that they wanted to get alerts from food banks when they had foods, when they had eligible food. So they actually built an app in Ember that would literally, it had 3 components, all right? So it had, some of this was static. You know, I coached them up a little bit. So they had a repository for the food providers. So a grocery store, a restaurant can list, hey, we have food available. Then they had a system that would alert the NGOs and things and the food banks that they can get the food. And they had another component, which was an Ember app that they stuffed inside a phone gap. Where did they get that from? I have no clue. But they did it within 48 hours in a weekend. And they were the only kids that actually had a working app. Now, here's the other part of it where I felt like a parent. I remember when my mom used to get mad when I didn't win things. But they were the only kid that had a working app, and they did not win. But I know, right? But I still felt proud that they took this upon themselves to learn a technology in a weekend and actually build something that could affect positive change in their community. And they actually were featured on the news, local news outside in San Francisco. And now they're actually teaching mobile app development using PhoneGap and Ember to Black Girls Code. So I think it's, it's just one of those things, again, where I feel extremely proud. So what's next, right? Expansion. So we need more companies. We need more cities. And we need to teach people how to build businesses, but not just any type of business, right? Like build businesses that can affect your communities and do some good, and not just have a ton of money and build the next Snapchat, right? So one of the things I implore you guys to do, I always like to leave people with a call to action. Is like I want you to get involved, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's a disadvantaged community. But, we get wrapped up in features and shipping the next greatest thing. And the one thing that you guys realize that you probably take for granted is that you're immensely skilled, you're immensely talented. And even if it's just for 30 minutes to an hour a week, you can impart that knowledge on someone. And you can make a dent in, the issues that are around in many cities. I've met people from Ohio and Tennessee and all these places where I know personally that have the same issues as the Bay. And just take it upon yourselves to do more than just code, right? It's more than that. You have the power to change the world with just a few keystrokes. So thank you all very much. That was my time.